Hello and welcome to Label UK. My name is David.
And my name's Rihanna, and today's technical video is about the Neptis Plus LET and SLT. The Neptis Plus LET is recommended for internal use for door leaves up to 120 kg, and the Neptis Plus SLT is recommended for external use for door leaves up to 250 kg. The Neptis Plus SLT and LET are both fire rated with a 120-minute fire certificate. The dimensions of the Neptis Plus SLT and LET are 550mm long, 110 high and 120 deep.
When installing any automatic unit onto a door, please make sure the door leaf is free swinging before you do anything. That means to say if there's any resistance on that door, that it could be a tight seal, it could be a tight brush, the door might have dropped, you might have a transom closer in there that's a non-hold open, hold open. It's no good drilling that transom closer out and draining the oil out because you've still got the springs for resistance. So you should fit a dummy transom closer. Same would apply to the bottom pivot if you've got a floor spring in there. If there's a floor spring in there, that has to be replaced with a dummy. The door must be free swinging. And just try it after you've done it. You might have to take the door off and adjust it on the pivots itself. You have to make sure it's free swinging. I must emphasize that. When installing the operator, the Neptis, first off, make sure you've got enough room above the actual door leaf itself. You need from the door leaf to the top of the unit about 155mm. With this particular unit, you can have a UK fixed plate, such as this one. You can have a number of fixing points along that instead of the 6 fixing points in the unit. It gives a stable base. You also have a number of shims that run the back of the fixed plate to make sure that the unit is perfectly vertical and perfectly horizontal. So you've got a stable base to attach your unit to. This particular demonstration unit has a slide arm fitted. The slide arm is a pull arm, which is an inward opening door. Rule of thumb is that when you're fitting the slide arm, that the power supply is furthest away from the pivot point because it's opening inwards. If it was opening outwards, the door was opening outwards, and you want the arm to go underneath the door frame, the power supply would be closest to the pivot point. On this particular door set, it's an aluminium door set, but you might have a wooden door set. And you might have architraver running around the door itself. If you've got architraver running around the door itself, you might not have enough room with this particular knuckle. So what you can have is a B or a C extension. That will lift that unit further up. So you might not have to cut the architraver away because the unit is further away from the architraver. If you've got an articulated arm and the door is opening outwards, that unit actually drops down right to the edge or the top edge of the door frame itself. Now, if you didn't use a UK fixed plate and you wasn't using it at all, and where you was fixing this particular unit onto the wall, it would be possible that you could blow out some of the brickwork which is there. So what you need to do is use an extension to lift that unit further up, so there's less chance of you blowing that brickwork out. When you've mounted the unit on your bulkhead and your end caps are off, make sure the red mark, this is just slightly over, is in the middle there. That's your default setting. That's roughly 3/4 of a turn of spring on the actual unit itself. Then, with the door in the closed position, add the arm. It will engage into your knuckles and your cancellation. And then, and only then, remove this bolt here. This locks your spring off. If you remove that bolt before you got your arm attached, it will totally detension. I will remove that bolt. It just comes out the vein of the gearing. And put it into the appropriate hole. For later use. Because at one point, somebody might want to take the actual door off itself. If they haven't got that bolt to lock it off, and they take the arm off, the actual unit will detension, and you'll have to take the unit off the wall to retension it. So tighten it up, So it's firm. So the arm's attached. Next you want to attach the slide arm itself, the rail. But you notice on this one there's a box section there. It's called a box section packer from us, because if you don't put the packer on with this particular small little rebate here, the actual arm itself will hit the top of the transom closer. So you want to pack these slide arms just slightly off the transom closer itself. But please make sure this is perfectly vertical, because if it's not, the same thing will happen. As the door opens, and if it's just slightly down, it will drag into the actual slide rail itself. Or if it's slightly at an angle which is going upwards, it will actually drag it, come out of the actual slide rail. Once the slide arm's fitted, then open the door and make sure it's all free swinging. There's no resistance in that at all, and the door closes nice and sweetly. Also notice in the slide arm, you've got a locking bolt inside there. That locking bolt is to stop it going past 95 degrees. So you adjust that, basically it's a door stop inside there. Once you're happy with your door, it's opening and closing freely on the arm. Add your mains power. It's 230 volts, it's encapsulated into that plug. That just plugs into there. Make sure your toggle switch is on to number 1. Then add your programmer. The programmer is a black programmer with a green leaf. That attaches into that port there, and you're ready to program. Please remember to use the QR codes. The QR code is on every unit that we sell. This is for the engineer's purpose only. So the QR code will take you to the website and PDFs. That will give you all the wiring diagrams for that particular unit. They'll also give you the installation manuals for that particular unit, and more importantly, the training video for that particular unit. It will last you about 25 minutes.
This is the programmer that you need. It's black in colour, and there will be a green leaf symbol in the top right hand corner. When the programmer is connected to the powered unit, the screen will light up and acquire the operator. In the bottom right hand corner, it will say what the software version is. This needs to be R10 or above. To set up the operator, you're going to hold in this central button here and go straight into setup in the top left using this button to enter. It will make you put in a password. This is set to default all A's, and you want to do a full setup. You go through the options. So SO1 is a single or double door selection. We've got a single door, so we're going to leave this as off, and you move down using this left button. Electric lock function. We don't have one currently connected, so I'll leave this in off. Battery pack. We haven't got one present at the moment, so this will stay as off. We haven't got our safety sensors connected yet, so this can stay as off as well for closing and for opening. It's going to be a normally open input, so this can stay as on. If you have a fire alarm connected in 6 and 7, you will need to change this to off to make it a normally closed circuit. We're going to leave this as a mechanical selector as we have a key switch on our door, so this will stay off. We're going to leave this door closing by spring use only, so this can stay as off. And then the operator is ready to be set up. Press OK here, and then the door will do its initial open. Once the door has completed its initial setup, you need to move across to the second box here. This is switches and potentiometers, and you enter using this left button. All your potentiometers are down this way, and all of your functions are up this way. We need to go into the potentiometers, so we're going to move down. PO1 is your opening speed, and you can adjust that using these buttons on the right here. PO2 is your closing speed, which can also be adjusted using the same buttons. And PO4 is your pause time. These need to be adjusted according to the requirements of the door that you're installing. Once you've adjusted your opening, closing and pause times, you can exit back to the main screen. This bottom here is a little test to use for the door so that you can check whether it's suitable for the door leaf and its requirements.
Once you've done the initial setup of the door's opened and closed and you're happy with your different speeds, opening speed, closing speed and your pause time, the next operation would be to add some accessories. And this time we're going to add our optics safety sensor, which is an OA Edge Axis T. So rule of thumb, the master sensor, which this one is here, should be on the side of the operator. The reason for that is because the cable, which will run from the master sensor, can go all the way around and go straight into the back of the operator. If you had it on the other side, you'd have to drill it through the door. But we always say, rule of thumb, on the side of the operator. Now, when mounting this sensor, it's very important that from the edge of the door to the module inside the case should be no more than 70mm away from the actual edge of the door. And the TX is always close to the leading edge of the door because that puts one beam down, which covers the leading edge of the door, and the other three beams come this way, across the door face to the hinge point, and gives you the full coverage. If you put it the other way, and you have the TX this side, there'd be one beam down there, and all the beams would be going that way. And as the door tried to close, it wouldn't close because it'd be seeing the framework. Once the master sensor has been fitted, you then move on to the slave sensor, which is on the opposite side of the door. The slave sensor is fitted the same as the master, but this time it's only got 4 dip switches on instead of 8 and a 4 on the master. The TX is still the same, it's still closest to the leading edge of the door, but from the edge of the door to the module itself should be no more than 70mm away. Now, once you've fitted the sensor, you then look at the dip switches. This is the closing face of the door. If I push the door closed, this is the closing face. So always on the closing face of the door, on the bank of 4 dip switches only, you put dip switch 4 on. That depicts the closing face of the door for the sensor to inform the unit. We're just going to flick around now to the master sensor. So the basic setup for the master sensor are dip switches 1, 3 and 7 must be on. 1 is to lift the sensor more off the floor, 3 is to immunity and 7 is for monitoring. Once you've fitted those, switch those on, you now look at wiring the sensor in. Now what you need to do is wire your safety sensors in, and you'll do that through the wiring diagram that we supply to tell you which terminals they go into. You get your 24 volt power supply, go into the sensor, your sensor will light up. You've got your dip switches on your master, 1, 3 and 7 on it as your basic setup. Once you've done that, you then need to press the function switch, which is there. Press the function switch until the little LED light goes off. LED light goes off, step back, the light will flash. Hopefully it will go solid green, which it does. The unit is now set up. But if the unit flashes repeatedly red, green, red, green, red, green, you press it for less than a second, that function switch, to set it up and it'll go solid green. When it's solid green, it's set. So it's set the distance off the floor. And now what you need to do is adjust your rake to suit the door itself. And to adjust the rake, use your screwdriver, put it into your screw head, and you adjust the rake by turning it that way or that way. And you adjust the rake coming from the door. And obviously you'd set that up with your test box to get the right rake and angle, because the door must stop 200mm before it hits the test box. Once you've adjusted the rake on the master sensor, it's now time to adjust the rake on this slave sensor. This is obviously the closing face, as we said before, and also dip switch 4's on for the closing face. To adjust the rake is the screw there, and you adjust it and turn it to bring the rake either further away or closer in, and you do that with the test box to make sure you got it in the right position. Now we switch the dip switches on the units, on the safety sensors, and we've also adjusted the rake, which will have to be adjusted again later with this test box. We're now going to hand over to Ree so she can do the programming.
Once your safety sensors have been wired in and set up, you'll need to turn them on. We're going to do this in the functions up here. Go up to F11. This is your safety sensor for closing. This needs to be turned to on using the up button here. F12 is the safety sensor for opening. This needs to be on. Test safety sensor for closing. The tests also need to be on. This is for F13 and also F14. In this setup, we're using Optex OA Edge T safety sensors. They're a low level, so this can stay as off. If you decide the door leaf is too heavy to close on spring alone, go into F38 and turn on closing by spring and motor. This means that the motor will help drive the door leaf back into the frame. We recommend turning F38 on for an external door where wind load will affect the closing of the door leaf.
Reece just switched the sensors on now, so what we need to do now is use the test box to make sure that the sensors pick the test box up no more than 200 mil away to comply with the regulations. So we put the test box at 45 degrees, Reece will activate the door, and it stops just before the 200 mil. We'll now position the test box to 90 degrees from the door leaf. We'll activate the door leaf, and the door leaf should stop 200 mil from the test box. Ready? If you remove the test box, the door will then fully open, then close. Please remember, you can use both sides of the test box, two different colours, contrasting colours. We'll now do the test box on the closing face of the door. We'll locate it right next to the threshold. Reece will activate the door will open, and the door as it closes should stop within 200 mil of the door, well not stop, but reopen within 200 mil of the test box. If it doesn't, it fails its test. And it reopens. Remove the test box, and the door should now fully close. Once you've adjusted your safety sensors with your test box, then open the door up. If there's a wall or a barrier there, you'll find that the door will stop because the safety sensor sees the wall or the barrier. If I activate it with the fob, door will open and it picks up the actual wall itself, or it would be a barrier rail. And that door will stand there for 30 seconds, and after 30 seconds the door will close. So now what you need to do is when the door's closed, you need to adjust PO3, which is your wall blanking potentiometer pot on your programmer.
If a wall or barrier is present, when the door opens, the safety sensor will detect them. This will cause the door to pause still for 30 seconds before closing again. If you go into PO3, you can inhibit how much the sensor sees in the last part of opening. Adjust this using the buttons on the right. The sensors will then ignore the wall or barrier and open fully as intended. Remember, you must always use a safety sensor test box when setting the sensors up.
Once you've adjusted your potentiometer pot PO3 on your programmer, which is your back off for your safety sensors, activate the door, and I'll do it by means of a fob. Door will open, and it will get to the point where you backed it off and it goes into creep mode. The door will open to 90 degrees and then close. So next you want to wire some more accessories into the operator. I would suggest you wire your key switch in next, which will get it wired into the terminal blocks 10 and 11, depending on which way you want to wire your key switch. You could always wire your key switch through the toggle switch and have the toggle switch basically as a key switch by chopping the ends of the toggle switch off and wiring it through the key switch. That means to say, if you wire it through the toggle switch, you actually switch the unit off. If you wire it through your 10 and 11, you put a link between terminals 1 and 3 to make the unit always fully automatic. And all you do is when you switch the key switch to off, you break the activation signal coming into the operator. Once you've attached an accessory, such as a key switch that we've just done, plug it in, your key switch, and try it. Make sure it opens the door fully, and try the key switch to off to make sure it closes the door. The reason I say do it one at a time, if you're new to the industry and you've never fitted one of these operators before, just do logical steps, one at a time. If it doesn't work, it's your last step. After the key switch has been wired in and you're happy that the key switch is working correctly, you now got to think about your activation. How are you going to activate the door? Is it going to be via access control? Is it going to be by automatic mode, such as a 106 sensor, so as you walk up to the door opens automatically? Or is it going to be by push pads? So we're going to use a 106 sensor. That's a 106 sensor. If you're going to mount a 106 sensor, you're going to mount it, because this is an inward opening door, you're going to mount it above the pivot point. You're not going to mount it anywhere along the rail of the door, because as the door closes, the 106 sensor will see it. So you can either mount it on the pivot point, or if you've got a full ceiling, you can mount it just in front of the door itself, so it picks it up. Important thing to remember is you've got a number of dip switches on there. You normally put on dip switch 1 and 4. 1 is bidirectional, 4 is immunity. So if the door was there, if the sensor was there, the activation sensor, and the door was opening that way instead of inwards, it would see the arm going through the door, but it wouldn't see the arm coming back from the door. Or if I was walking up to the door, it'd see me walking up, but it wouldn't see me walking away. Or if I was walking across the door face, it wouldn't see me walking across. But as soon as I stopped and turned, it would then see me and open the door. So we're on the closing side of the door now. We've placed the 106 in the middle there because anywhere along that bulkhead you can fix it, because the door's going that way. It's not going this way, so it won't see it on the closing. So you can either put it mounted across there, or you can mount it in the ceiling about there. We've got dip switches 1 and 4 on, which is bidirectional. So if I move my hand this way, it sees it. But if I move away from it, it doesn't see me. If you notice, you've got your microwave sensor there. It puts an optical field on the floor. Because we're in a very small environment in this office, what we're going to do is put a set of narrow beams on to narrow the beam. It puts it onto a very small field in the floor. You can adjust it either way, up and down. And also adjust the sensitivity of it as well. We've got a very low sensitivity here because it's a very small door. Now if I move towards the door, it sees me. If I move away from the door, it doesn't see me. So now I'm going to switch the key switch to auto. I move towards the door. Sees me and the door will open.
Now we've finished showing you how to set up a single operator, we're going to move on to doubles. Behind me is a pair of Neptis Plus operators working together as a double door set. The master unit works exactly the same as a single in the way that the key switch and the activation is all wired up to it. To connect the slave operator to the master operator, all you have to do is plug the synchronization cable into both of the control cards and turn dip switch 1 on the slave operator. Please make sure that the power is off when you do this. So it's easy to see. This is how you connect the 2 control panels with a synchronization cable. Got your 2 panels, and this is your synchronization cable. This one end needs to plug into here. And exactly the same on the other panel. Now they're connected, you need to adjust the dip switch on one of the panels. The dip switches are located on the board here. On one of the panels, you will need to change 1 to on. This is now your slave control panel. The operators will initially set up as rebated doors. This means that the master will open first, followed by the slave, then the slave will close first, followed by the master. If you would like to change this so that the door leaves open and close at the same time, go to P30 and P31 and change the values to 0. When the power is turned on, the programmer will acquire both the master and the slave operator. It's exactly the same as before. We need to do the initial setup. So hold in the set button and go into the top left box here. The password is all A's as default, and we need to do a full setup. The only difference here is because this is a double door, we're going to have to turn this on and go through your options as normal. The operator is now ready to be set up, so you can click OK. The master operator will open first, followed by the slave operator, then the slave operator will close, followed by the master. To have the door leaves opening and closing together, go into switches and potentiometers, go all the way down to P30, change this value to 0, go into P31 and change this value to 0. On this particular door set, we're using Optex OAHT safety sensors. These sensors work on the same frequency, so you'll have to turn on dip switch 2 on one of the master sensors on the bank of 8 to stop them from interfering with each other. Once you've connected your safety sensors, you'll have to turn them on in the programmer. To do this, go into switches and potentiometers. This M symbol means that we're currently programming the master operator. Same as before, go up to F11. This is your safety sensor for closing. This needs to be on. F12 is your safety sensor for opening. This needs to be on. The testing for both the closing and the opening sensors need to be on. Because we're using Optex OAHT sensors, it's already a low level, so this can stay off. We now need to program this in the slave operator. To do this, click the top right button. This S symbol means that we're now programming the slave operator. Exactly the same. Go to F11. Safety sensor for closing needs to be on. Safety sensor for opening needs to be on. And the testing for both. F15 can remain off.
So on our particular door set, the doors are opening away from us with the articulated arms. We've got to look to see where we're going to position our activation sensors. So we're going to use the Optex 106. The 106 will be positioned in the middle of the two operators, because as the door opens, the sensor will see the arms moving towards the sensor, but it won't see it coming away. So you can actually position this in the middle. So on this side of the door set, the doors are opening this way. You need to position your activation sensor over the pivot point there, and also over the pivot point there. So that way, it's looking down when the doors are fully open, and as the doors close, it won't see the doors closing if you're using a synchronized cable. Thank you for watching this training video. We hope you found it very useful.
If you have any more questions, please feel free to get in touch.